Picture an Everest climber, strong, capable. You're probably picturing these guys. Certainly not me. Today, I want to share what's really going on inside the mind of an Everest climber. I think you'll be surprised. It's our third day at base camp. I'm higher than anything in the Rockies, 17,000 feet. I felt good upon arrival. It's exciting. Then, the altitude takes effect. I'm 3 miles up, 10,000 feet higher than the clouds. My head feels like it will explode. Not far off, given what happens to sealed bags of food at this altitude. 2 weeks prior, when I met my team, my heart sank. I'm not a super athletic person. The first guy had already climbed an 8,000 meter peak. The next two were German ultra marathoners. Not regular marathoners, ultra marathoners. Running a mere 26 miles wasn't enough to capture their attention. I was the only woman and the only American on the 2-month expedition. I learned quickly how German people operate. Always 5 minutes early and utterly unamused by my weakness. So, my teammates all live in the Alps, and then you have me. I never played a varsity sport. I sit at a desk 12 hours a day. I once watched a Law and Order marathon for 2 days straight. So yeah, there's a moment or two of self-doubt. When the pain subsides, I go for a day hike to shake off the rust. Minutes in, I'm redlining. I can't breathe. I have to take breaks every few steps. Eventually, I turn around an hour into the hike. My teammates keep going for several more hours, and it hits me. I took 2 months off work, just failed on a gentle day hike, and I'm here to summit Mount Everest. I felt embarrassed that I had even showed up thinking I could climb the mountain. Behind my glacier glasses, I cried to myself for hours. That night, I thought back to when I initially decided to attempt Everest. The instant I got the idea, I felt sick to my stomach because I knew right away I had to do it. I had to do it because when I took stock of my life, nothing was mine. My college degree wasn't mine, my career wasn't mine, the things I believed in and the things I was supposed to value, they were wonderful, but none of those were really mine. Everything had been achieved by standing on the shoulders of someone else or had been handed to me. But climbing was mine. This could be mine. Days later, still choking back tears from my defeat, I call my husband back home. He spent 13 years in special operations as a pararescue jumper and now runs his own sports medicine practice. So I trust his judgment about climbing, training, and me. He has no pity. He reaches his foot through the phone and kicks me in the ass. To be fair, I needed it. I'm left with the feeling that I have to move forward and really do this, because at this point, the alternative, giving up, is worse. Keep in mind, I'm still only at base camp. Climbing Everest is not simply moving higher and higher on the mountain. Climbers ascend part of the way, then climb all the way back down to base camp. We do this multiple times. First rotation is up to advanced base camp, then all the way back down to base camp. Second is up higher to Camp 1, then again all the way back down to base camp. Only then am I ready to go to the summit. I'll be honest, intellectually, I understand this, the physiology, the science of why we have to do this. But in my head, I can't help but think, I just spent all this energy getting myself up here, and now I have to go all the way back down, only to do it all over again? It's mentally exhausting, especially because I'm struggling. struggling most on the parts of the climb I must pass through over and over and over again. I can't keep up with my team. I'm falling hours behind. This is supposed to be the easy part. I'm agonizing over it and feeling the pressure. I'm paranoid that they're avoiding eye contact with me and have switched to speaking mostly German. True or not, it feels very real. I don't know if I can fully convey how dejected and demoralized I am at this point. It's a very low and lonely time for me. I can't blame it on weather or conditions. The only thing I can blame is me. I'm what's wrong. I later learned that only 1 in 3 climbers summit on their first try. Had I known it then, I might have given up. But I soldier on. On my second rotation, I head to Camp 1. Finally, the real climbing starts. This entails scaling the North Col, a 1,000-foot ice wall. Climbing it is like an intense interval workout, only I'm at 23,000 feet. So it feels like running upstairs with a plastic bag over my head. We then sleep in a small camp. I sleep well on snow, but my confidence is already crushed. So the next morning, when our guide Rupert suggests we climb a little bit higher, I ask if I should sit it out, save my energy, given that I'm the weakest. No, let's go, he says. He's Austrian, so no ambiguity there. We start climbing. We're climbing for about an hour or so until we take a quick break. I look downhill, and my teammates are way behind me. They're all hunched over, panting, looking confused. I figure they're playing a joke on me, mimicking me for always being the slow one. When they eventually catch up, they tell me they couldn't keep up with me. It was as if I had a booster pack on. It turns out I was too fast for them. Relief and shock. Look, the bar was set very low. My being able to just keep up would have been a relief. So you can imagine the shock we all had when I was actually fast, and I wasn't even trying. I know exactly what happened. I was overvaluing what they do well and undervaluing what I do well. Here's the funny thing. When we went back down, I was still the slowest on the lower parts of the mountain. That never changed. For whatever reason, I'm better at the harder parts than I am the easier ones. If I'd given up, I never would have known that. I would have just gone home feeling dejected, end of story. But that's not what happened. Fast forward, we reach Camp 3, the highest camp in the world. It's the evening before my summit attempt, which will begin at 10 p.m. We'll climb through the night to reach the summit at dawn, giving us the most hours of daylight to safely descend. The vast majority of accidents happen on the way down, so it's key to have daylight in case a rescue is required. I'm sitting quietly in my tent, trying to conserve energy and mentally preparing for the summit day. I'm told the altitude is too high for anyone to sleep, but I can hear my Sherpa partner snoring in the tent next to me. I also hear people speaking American English nearby. I would have been annoyed by how loud they were. It's true, Americans are loud. But I really missed Americans. And more importantly, I needed this pep talk. I'm comforted by their positivity and enthusiasm. Yeah, we do got this, I think in my head. Then their leader signs off saying, and you all know our climbers don't wear diapers on the summit. What does that mean? Is that a risk? Do other climbers have to wear diapers on the summit? I'd heard of elite marathon runners defecating themselves in races, but I had never heard of this on Everest. I assure myself that it must be an inside joke, but I take an Imodium. just in case. It's almost 10 p.m. I'm outside my tent, fully packed and ready to go. It's game time. I look around, it's pitch black. I realize the term scared shitless might be a real risk. That diaper joke is haunting me. It honestly feels like my stomach is about to drop out. I know this sounds absurd, but I take another Imodium, just in case. The moment I leave camp, I'll be entering what's called the death zone, where the altitude is so high, so cold, so windy, and deprived of oxygen that the human body starts to eat itself. It's also where most of the 300 deaths on Everest have occurred. Even today, about 5 people die on the mountain each year. Nothing decomposes at the temperatures up here, and I understand that there may be 12 bodies never recovered along the route I'll be taking to the summit. Before I start, a thought flashes across my mind. I don't want to die for this. Maybe this is my summit. Maybe this is high enough for me. Even before I leave camp, I'm thinking to myself, I don't need to go any higher. This is good enough for me. I decide I can always turn around if need be. I start climbing. I'm climbing well, really well. My movements are crisp and intentional, never sloppy, not slipping. Maybe all those doubts were only in my head and not real. Maybe I'm not so weak. Maybe I never was. If I'd given in, I wouldn't have even reached this point. After all, climbing Everest is hard enough without me throwing up mental roadblocks and getting in my own way. On summit day, there are several steps or rock climbs along the way. This is tough with massive clunky boots and steel spikes on. At this altitude, nothing is easy anymore. The second step is the crux of the climb. I must first climb 10 feet of rock slab, then climb 30 feet of rickety ladders. There's a 10,000-foot vertical drop to the right. Several hours into the climb, I lift my oxygen mask to catch my breath. Needing to do so is not normal. I hear a loud coming from my oxygen tank. This sound means my regulator is busted and I'm not getting any additional oxygen. There's 30% less oxygen on the summit than there is at sea level. What does this mean? If there was a helicopter capable of landing on the summit, there isn't, but if there was, a person who wasn't acclimatized could only survive there for minutes. Well, I still don't want to die up here. We stop and look for a spare regulator. But I already used our spares. Others on the team had this rare issue before I did. Rather than panic, I feel a sense of calm and think to myself, my guide Rupert won't let me die up here. And if I panic, I'll waste vital oxygen, so better to stay calm. There's some fiddling around. I think he gives me his working regulator and takes my broken one for himself. Eventually, our lead Sherpa Mingma arrives and seamlessly produces an extra working regulator. Mingma has summited Everest 21 times. The record was 22. This is a man who always brings more spare parts than one should ever need. I reached the summit at dawn, among the first people up there that day. I'm at 29,000 feet, admiring a view normally reserved for jumbo jets at cruising altitude. The summit pyramid is surprisingly small and super steep. It's packed tight with other climbers. It's like the size of this red dot. I look out over the Himalayan range and all the other peaks seem tiny. They're dwarfed by Everest. In total, on summit day, I climbed for 21 hours, 14 up and 7 all the way down to advanced base camp. That's the day, last year, that I became the 68th American woman to summit Mount Everest. The best part of the entire climb was discovering what existed on the other side of my doubts and fears. Summit Day was the best climbing I'd ever done in my life. This was within my capabilities. I had it. No more doubt. I've come to realize that taking on any formidable challenge will mean passing through a dark point where you're temporarily blind to the good that can come from it. Passing through that fear, panic, doubt, that blindness, and coming out the other side is the best satisfaction there is. That's what makes it worthwhile. Ultimately, it's not the summit that is the value of this challenge. It's overcoming the setbacks along the way. That's what builds resilience. That's what carries over. When I face my next challenge in life, I'll think back to Everest. Not to the summit, but to that moment when I failed on that gentle day hike from base camp and stayed anyway. To the moment I thought I wasn't good enough for my team, but turned out to be fast. To the moment I didn't shit myself from fear and kept moving up the mountain. What I mean is that reaching the summit of Everest didn't change who I am. The real value was in the setbacks I endured along the way. I'm still the exact same person. The only difference is that I know much better who that is. Sir Edmund Hillary, member of the first team to reach the summit of Everest in 1953, said, "It's not the mountain we conquer, but ourselves." Sounds cheesy, but the man pretty much nailed it. Thank you.